Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajakacarya Ashtottara Satashri Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyamakund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Ganga Mayi Ki Jai Jamuna Mayi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi ki jai, Tulsi Devi ki jai, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna, and welcome everyone for Srimad Bhagavatam class with His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami. It is Monday, May 6th, 2024 in New York, and we're reading in the third canto, chapter 31, tonight picking up with text number 12, unless I'm horribly mistaken, which I often am. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Janturu Vacha Tasyopasannam Avitum Jagadichayata Nana Tayor Bhuvichalachcharanarvindam Sohang Brajami Sharanang Hyakuto Bhayang Me Yene Drishigatira Darshya Sato Nurupa. The human soul says, I take shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who appears in his various eternal forms and walks on the surface of the world. I take shelter of him only because he can give me relief from all fear, and from him I have received this condition of life, which is just befitting my impious activities. The word Chalach Charanara refers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who actually walks or travels upon the surface of the world. For example, Lord Ramachandra actually walked on the surface of the world, and Lord Krishna also walked just like an ordinary man. The prayer is therefore offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who descends to the surface of this earth or any part of this universe for the protection of the pious and the destruction of the impious. It is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita that when there is an increase of irreligion and discrepancies arise in the real religious activities, the Supreme Lord comes to protect the pious and kill the impious. This verse indicates Lord Krishna. Another significant point in this verse is that the Lord comes, Ichchaya, by his own will. As Krishna confirms in Bhagavad Gita, Sambhavam Yatma Mayaya, I appear at my will by my internal potency. He is not forced to come by the laws of material nature. It is stated here, Ichchaya. He does not assume any form, as the impersonalists think, because he comes at his own will, and the form in which he descends is his eternal form. As the Supreme Lord puts the living entity into the condition of horrible existence, he can also deliver him, and therefore one should seek shelter at the lotus feet of Krishna. Krishna demands, give up everything and surrender unto me. And it is also said in Bhagavad Gita that anyone who approaches him does not come back again to accept a form in material existence, but goes back to Godhead, back to home, never to return. Om Jnana-timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurin Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. As we may remember from the last commentary of Srila Vishwanath Varti, speaking on the previous verse, he's talking about the jiva in this condition. He says, a jiva who was a devotee prayed in this manner in the womb in the past. Not every jiva does so. Anyway, remembering past lives is uncommon. Not many people do, but when you do, it must be really intense, like waking up from and remembering a very troubled existence. Like Gajendra is another example. He was a devotee in his previous devotee king, and he remembered his mantras in that time of crisis. And so now we're entering a section of prayers here being offered by the jiva. And you may notice the change of meter accompanying the change of gear here in the narrative, changing scenes and being given a look here inside the mind of the embryo. And as he often does in such cases, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti now provides additional subtext to accompany these verses, posing himself as that jiva in the womb. He has a lot to say, whereas he didn't comment on many of the preceding verses, which describe that condition that the jiva goes through in between births. And we're so happy that Maharaj could join us. Thank you for being with us, Maharaj, and love to hear your comments on this.
Thank you, Kendra Prabhu. Om Jnana-timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Jaina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manopistam Stapitam Jaina Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Shapadantikam. This is the fortunate soul who's praying this way. As Kendra Prabhu said, it's not every human being, but a fortunate soul, a devotee, who may pray to the Lord in this way. The Lord is Akutobhaya. He's the source of all relief from fear. Akutobhaya. This is certainly a fearful. Imagine it's like some kind of torture to be placed in this dark womb, and everything is going to be so difficult. So the devoted soul is praying to the Lord for freedom from fear, and is glorifying the Lord and acknowledging that he's present in another womb because of his past sinful activities. Kadamba Maharaj used to sometimes say that yes, we must have been devotees in our previous life, but we blew it. What did we do? We're back here in this world of birth and death, so we didn't fully use the opportunity given to us. So now in this life, we should finish our business. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Maharaj. Commenter. Now a question from Ananta Shesha Prabhu. How to become a fortunate soul?
Chant Hare Krishna.
I had a question also, that when Srila Vishwanath says not every jiva prays in this way, but in the lead up to this section where we're hearing the mind of the fortunate jiva being expressed, it's made clear that we're hearing about adverse fruitive activities, and the subject is specified as a sinful living entity. So I was wondering if there's how that continuum works.
Well, it appears that someone who's just at face value, someone who's somehow or other became eligible for suffering, but had this enough credit, so that now they're able to pray to the Lord. That's just taking it, as the text presents itself.
Thank you. And also perhaps it's someone who blew it.
Yeah, for sure.
Gurudas Prabhu has a hand up.
Should have stayed off Facebook.
Antikapatubhischa Krivisindre Chapatitam Bhavanam Vaishnavi Vinwan Maha. So I think these verses are just wonderful, but no one's here to hear more platitudes. My question, if the conditioned soul who is a Vaishnava is praying this way, but then after this brief interval, the Lord also grants him forgetfulness. In other words, we're not all like Maharaj Bharat or the elevated souls who remember their previous activities. Even though one may have been a devotee in his past birth, he gets to this stage and prays this wonderful way, but then the Lord, he gets covered over again and has to develop his Krishna consciousness from a standpoint of being materially entangled. So I guess my question, whether it's answerable or not, I'm not sure, is how what's the purpose of making this brief statement and then becoming covered once again? Obviously, everything, the Lord is ultimately the enjoyer of everything, so it's for His pleasure, and this prayer is to me obviously, pure devotional service. But then I'm just wondering if we're not meant to carry over that mood, and then once again we become covered and have to fight our way again to awareness, God consciousness. I'm just interested in any thoughts about that dynamic. Hare Krishna.
You seem to be, so the question is why the living entity, what's the purpose of the living entity's prayer if he's going to be covered over again?
Well, basically, it's like a brilliant, flash of tremendous insight that the Lord allows, and the living entity gladly responds to with these wonderful prayers. And then, but right after that, the Shastras tell us that, he forgets. So that's I'm just pointing.
Well, the Lord doesn't have to consistently allow, all right, I'll allow you to do this and this and this, and then I'll allow you to do more and more and more. You can go the other way. I'll give you this much, and that's all you get. It's the living entities. Yeah, he's given that much, all right, that you can have this much space in which you can realize something.
But then I forget it the next moment.
That's it. Even in this world, someone does some devotional service and then forgets or falls asleep or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's not that it has to be, the Lord is somehow obliged to make sure that we never forget anything or that we remain consistently advancing and advancing. That's up to us and up to Him. It's not that it has to be, why does He do it this way? If He gives you a little break in which you can see it, but then He doesn't continue, well, why did He give it to me then? Whatever you do, you're going to be criticized. if whatever God does, that is, he'll be criticized. So he gives some space,
No,
and
not
the
so much.
living entity realizes this much.
Or
Also, one.
continue.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear what you said.
Oh, I was just inviting you to continue, and my rude interruption notwithstanding. Please
Oh,
continue.
oh. Also, I'm just thinking aloud here a little bit. The Lord allows this prayer to be expressed in order for the living entity to be able to illuminate us about his situation, the situation of the living being. It's in one sense not necessary for the living being, but it gives us the opportunity to hear something. Yeah. So we're the beneficiaries of what the living entity, this pious living entity, is allowed to tell us.
Similar to the Chitraketu and his dead son
Yeah,
coming
I
back.
was thinking of that.
Yeah. Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Saraswati Mata has a comment or question here. Pranams. The Param Pujya Guru Maharaj gives us the rare spiritual birth. So how can we repent for our failures to the Guru Maharaj if we are not able to stop our impious activities despite really wanting to? What prayers can we offer Guru Maharaj if we know that we even would not forgive ourselves for lack of seriousness in Krishna consciousness?
Would you answer this, Kendra?
First, I have to make sure I understand it. I'll read it again to myself here. To my mind, it goes back to the original question of why do we get this glimpse of clarity and then get thrust back into sinful activity? And I feel that you answered this question in the course of discussing the reason for us being able to get inside the mind of the jiva in this section of the Bhagavatam. It's for our benefit. Just a very graphic example of how we can forget from moment to moment who we are, what the purpose of life is, just based on our circumstances and our sensory input. So what prayers can we offer Guru Maharaj? Goes back to how to become a fortunate soul. Just kirtaniya sadahari. Keep chanting, never stop chanting. Don't give up the association of devotees, and keep yourself in that situation. I don't know if that addresses all the nuances of her question, but that's as best I can do for right now.
And also, if we're not able to stop, stop anyway.
Yeah. Hare Krishna. Panchatattva Prabhu says the living entity is forgetting due to his sinful activities and his being obliged to take another material body. The Lord is being very kind to him to grant him some memory, even if it is passing. And okay, just reiterating the verse number here for someone. Okay, there's a hand up, Tulsi Priya.
Hare Krishna, please accept my obeisances. Glories to the assembled devotees. So I just had some thoughts on what Saraswati Mataji says. And also what Gurudas Prabhu was saying. I think it was him. What I was thinking is, if you make a prayer, even if you don't remember it, you're getting some benefit. It's a step you take towards Krishna. So in one sense, it doesn't really matter if you remember it or not. You reached out, and so I imagine there must be some kind of lasting benefit to that. And as far as, forgiving yourself or praying to the Guru, I think we get hung up on being perfect. Like we think we have some sort of ideal in our heads, and we get discouraged if we don't match up to that. And of course, that ideal is important, but you can get into a little bit of false ego. You want to see yourself that way, but the fact is that when you become most advanced, you don't see yourself that way. You see yourself as fallen. So, we can think of ourselves as fallen. We offer our prayers in our fallen state, and we accept that we're fallen, even if we're extremely advanced devotees. I have no idea, if people recognize that they're advanced, but it seems from, our acharyas that nobody who's advanced thinks that they're advanced. So it's like, I don't think if we're actually not advanced, it pays to overthink it too much. You just try. You make the effort, you make the prayers, you accept your fallen condition, and you put one foot in front of the other and you keep going. You don't have to feel good about it. You just have to do it, and the feeling good comes from actually doing the service. That it's not feeling good about ourselves. Oh, now I'm advanced. Now I'm worthy to make prayers. Now I'm making nice prayers. No, you never feel good about that. You always feel incapable and incompetent. But the bliss is from doing the service, and the more you do it, the more you can do it, and the better you get at it. With Krishna's help, with Krishna's mercy. Anyways, those are just some thoughts.
Jai, thank you so much. And Panchatattva Prabhu says, isn't that remembrance coming from Krishna? Krishna is saying to the living entity, you may have forgotten me, but I remember you. Thank you, Prabhu. And Madhupati Prabhu, I think we'll have text number 13 up on the screen in a moment here.
Okay. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhuttala Kritas Jayadvaita Swami Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhuttala Swami Yastve atra baddha iva karma bhi avritatma bhutendriya ashayamahim avalambya mayam Aste Vishuddham Avikaram Akhanda Bodham Atapyamana Hridaye Avasitam Namami. I, the pure soul, appearing now, bound by my activities, am lying in the womb of my mother by the arrangement of Maya. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him, who is also here with me, but who is unaffected and changeless. He is unlimited, but he is pursued in the repentant heart. To him I offer my respectful obeisances. As stated in the previous words, the Jiva soul says, I take shelter of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, constitutionally, the Jiva soul is a subordinate servitor of the Supreme Soul, the personality of Godhead. Both the Supreme Soul and the Jiva soul are sitting in the same body as confirmed in the Upanishads. They are sitting as friends, but one is suffering and the other is aloof from suffering. In this verse it is said, Vishuddham Avikaram Akhandabodham. The super soul is always sitting apart from all contamination. The living entity is contaminated and suffering because he has a material body. But that does not mean that because the Lord is also with him, he also has a material body. He is Avikaram, changeless. He is always the same Supreme. But unfortunately, the Mayavadi philosophers, because of their impure hearts, cannot understand that the Supreme Soul, the Super Soul, is different from the individual soul. It is said here, Atapyamana Hridaye Avashitam. He is in the heart of every living entity. But he can be realized only by a soul who is repentant. The individual soul becomes repentant that he forgot his constitutional position, wanted to become one with the Supreme Soul, and tried his best to lord it over material nature. He has been baffled and therefore he is repentant. At that time, Super Soul, or the relationship between the Super Soul and the individual soul, is realized. As it is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, after many, many births, the knowledge comes to the conditioned soul that Vasudeva is great, he is master and he is Lord. The individual soul is the servant and therefore he surrenders unto him. At that time he becomes a Mahatma, a great soul, therefore a fortunate living being who comes to this understanding, even within the womb of his mother, has his liberation assured. Yeah, is a continuation from the previous verse. A pure soul within the womb of the mother feels repentant and feels that I've gone through all these sufferings because I wanted to lord over material nature, to enjoy separately from the Lord. The Lord, as Super Soul, is also sitting within the heart, along with the soul, the individual soul. The individual soul is the repentant, is spelling repentant, while the Supreme Soul is unchanging, is a Paramatma sitting within the heart, is witnessing the activities of the soul. And the repentance which he is feeling is that, oh, how come he forgot his constitutional position to be the part and parcel of the Supreme Lord? And instead of serving the Supreme Lord, he served his senses and got covered by material nature. And that's why he's now taking this body. So that repentance is beginning of his understanding that he's a servant. The individual soul is a servant and therefore he surrenders unto him. Right. So the words mentioned by Srila Prabhupada in the reference in the purport is Bhavanam Janmanante Jnanavan Mam Prapadyate. Right. After many, many births, knowledge comes to the conditioned soul that Vasudeva is great. That ultimately everything is coming from Vasudeva. Right. The Jnani who wanted to merge with the Supreme Lord, become the impersonal form of the Supreme Lord, ultimately comes to the understanding that everything is coming from Vasudeva. At that time, he becomes a Mahatma, a great soul. Therefore, a fortunate living being who comes to this understanding, even within the womb of his mother, has his liberation assured. Yeah. The Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur mentions the living entity remembers with astonishment the merciful, amazing pastimes of his Lord. He exists within every suffering body of us sinful jivas. Why? We do not know if he does this to protect us or to perform his own pastimes. I offer respects to him. It is fitting that I am here in the womb, bound by karma, experiencing the results of my sinful acts. But why does he stay as Antaryami in this stinking hell? He exists there as if bound by karma, though he is not, because he wanders around Vrindavan with his lotus feet. It appears that he has an Atma covered by a material body like me, but he is not covered. How does he do this? He utilized his own Shakti of Maya composed of material elements, senses and mind. If that is so, then because of using material energy, he would then be contaminated and be subject to change. No, he is pure and without change because he has knowledge which cannot be destroyed by Maya, like my knowledge, Akhanda Bodham. How can this be understood by you? It is pursued in my completely distressed heart. It is distressed thinking, how can knowledge you by him situated in my heart, even to a person like me, be destroyed? Yeah. The Lord as a super soul is unchanging. He is not contaminated while being situated in the condition as mentioned, the stinking hell. Yeah, out of his causeless mercy, he is accompanying the soul. Yeah. Okay, I think that's what I have.
Thank you so much, Madhupati Prabhu. Maharaj?
Here it's Srila Vishwanath gives us the understanding that which I was wondering about this word Eva, as if. So he says that it's the living entity, it's the Lord who appears as if bound, as if covered, as if fallen, and so on. And the essential word comes at the end, namami. I offer my obeisances. So that Supreme Lord can't be the same personality of Godhead, can't be the same as the fallen living entity. The namami, the one person is offering respects to the other person. So namami, I offer my respects, my obeisances to that person. So Prabhupada's emphasizing in his purport that the Lord and the living entity are distinct, are different. Otherwise, what would be the meaning of namami? So the eternal relationship is there between the supreme and the subordinate living being. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj. And we have a question or a comment from Saraswati and Tulsi Priya. We'll read it.
I was reading about a daughter of a drug addict who served her addicted mother, and especially at the mother's death, despite having been completely neglected as a child. When asked why she served her abusive mother, the daughter's reply was that there were moments when the mother was not under the influence of drugs and had some clarity, and would show her love, so even if the mother mostly forgot this love, the daughter didn't forget this fleeting love. So similarly, would Krishna remember whatever love, albeit fractured love, we may have expressed him?
Therefore, swalpam apyasya dharmasya trayate mahatobhaya. Even the slightest bit of devotional service may save one from the greatest danger.
Thank you very much, Saraswati Mata. Panchatattva Prabhu, were you able to read text number 14?
Sure, be happy to. Thank you. Ya panchabhuta rachite rahita sharire chano yatendriya gunartha chidatmakoham ena vikunta mahimanam richin tam enam vande param prakriti purushayo pumansam. This window. Translation. I am separated from the Supreme Lord because of my being in this material body, which is made of 5 elements, and therefore my qualities and senses are being misused, although I'm essentially spiritual. Because the Supreme Personality of Godhead is transcendental to material nature and the living entities, because he is devoid of such a material body, and because he's always glorious in his spiritual qualities, I offer my obeisances unto him. Purport. The difference between the living entity and the Supreme Personality of Godhead is that the living entity is prone to be subjected to material nature, whereas the Supreme Godhead is always transcendental to material nature as well as to the living entities. When the living entity is put into material nature, then his senses and qualities are polluted or designated. There is no possibility for the Supreme Lord to become embodied by material qualities or material senses, for he is above the influence of material nature and cannot possibly be put in the darkness of ignorance like the living entities. Because of his full knowledge, he's never subjected to the influence of material nature. Material nature is always under his control, and it is therefore not possible that material nature can control the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Since the identity of the living entity is very minute, he's prone to be subjected to material nature. But when he is freed from this material body, which is false, he attains the same spiritual nature as the Supreme Lord. At that time, there is no qualitative difference between him and the Supreme Lord. But because he's not so quantitatively powerful as to never be put under the influence of material nature, he is quantitatively different from the Lord. The entire process of devotional service is to purify oneself of this contamination of material nature and put oneself on the spiritual platform, where he is qualitatively one with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the Vedas, it is said that the living entity is always free. Asango hyayam purushaha. The living entity is liberated. His material contamination is temporary, and his actual position is that he is liberated. This liberation is achieved by Krishna consciousness, which begins from the point of surrender. Therefore, it is said here, I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Person. Om Jnana-timirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshumritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Liberation is achieved by Krishna consciousness, which begins from the point of surrender And Srila Prabhupada's pointing out at the end of this purport, therefore it is said here, I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Person. So the living entity is surrendering. He's offering his obeisances. He's understanding his position. Of course, these prayers have been referred to as a kind of a flash in previous comments, but actually they go on for some time in this portion of Srimad Bhagavatam. It appears that the living entity in this position is really going deeply into understanding of his existential situation and what his constitutional position is as a servant of the Lord, as his subordinate. And he's recognizing the difference between himself and the Supreme Person. It's interesting that at the end of the previous purport, there's some mention of an impersonalist, or someone who's aspiring to become one with the Supreme Soul and trying his best to lord it over material nature, being baffled and then becoming repentant. It kind of reminds me of that verse, Bahanam Jamananante Gyanam Mang Prapadyate, Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samahatma Sudurlabha, and that that living being who becomes aware of his position even within the womb of the mother in the material body is fortunate and has his liberation assured. I was kind of wondering, and maybe Maharaj could address it, whether or not this type of person is also blessed to have this kind of realization in the womb. He's gone through many lifetimes trying to speculate his way towards the absolute truth. He's tried and certainly faltered in many different ways and become materially entangled by his attempts to lord it over the material nature. But here Prabhupada says, when he understands and he surrenders, oh, I'm not the enjoyer, I'm not the Lord, I'm a tiny, minute spiritual spark, I'm a tiny servant of Krishna, prone to fall into the clutches of the material energy. It's my duty to I surrender. I was wondering if that's also a position from which the living entity in the womb, in this obviously precarious position in the 10th month, coming to the 10th month of pregnancy, as is said later on in the verses, is praying. It behooves us to be servants of the Panchatattva, not the Panchabhuta. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Panchatattva Prabhu. And Maharaj, any comments to share?
Let me think just for a moment. The question was whether among these fortunate souls there can be a Gyani who's waking up to devotional service. Is that question? Yeah.
Yes.
I don't see an explicit reference here, although I might have missed it, but it does seem inherent in the way you say it, that he's, from one point of view, a Gyani is a person who has some devotional service, because without devotional service, you can't even be a Gyani. For that matter, yes, the Gyani has some devotional service because Gyan depends on some amount of devotional service. But yes, he's described as waking here, so I don't see an explicit reference. But of course, either way we take it, he's fortunate, and either way we take it, he's forced to take birth again and continue from where he left off.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
I'm checking to see if we have more hands up, comments, questions. I'm not seeing them. We're at 7:50. Our next verse has a very sizable purport. We could see Ross Prabhu. Are you able to read?
Yeah.
Text 15.
Yes, indeed.
Yan maya yora guna karma nibandane smin samsari ke hati charam stad abhishramena nasa smriti punarayam pavernita lokan yuktya karya mahad anugraham antarena. Translation. The human soul further prays. The living entity is put under the influence of material nature and continues a hard struggle for existence on the path of repeated birth and death. This conditional life is due to his forgetfulness of his relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, without the Lord's mercy, how can he again engage in the transcendental loving service of the Lord? Purport. Mayavadi philosophers say that simply by cultivation of knowledge by mental speculation, one can be liberated from the condition of material bondage. But here it is said, one is liberated not by knowledge, but by the mercy of the Supreme Lord. The knowledge the conditioned soul gains by mental speculation, however powerful it may be, is always too imperfect to approach the absolute truth. It is said that without the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one cannot understand him or his actual form, quality, and name. Those who are not in devotional service go on speculating for many, many thousands of years, but they are still unable to understand the nature of the absolute truth. One can be liberated in the knowledge of the absolute truth simply by the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is clearly said herein that our memory is lost because we are now covered by his material energy. Arguments may be put forward as to why we have been put under the influence of this material energy by the supreme will of the Lord. This is explained in Bhagavad Gita, where the Lord says, I am sitting in everyone's heart, and due to me one is forgetful, or one is alive in knowledge. The forgetfulness of the conditioned soul is also due to the direction of the Supreme Lord. A living entity misuses his little independence when he wants to lord it over material nature. This misuse of independence, which is called Maya, is always available. Otherwise, there would be no independence. Independence implies that one can use it properly or improperly. It is not static, it is dynamic. Therefore, misuse of independence is the cause of being influenced by Maya. Maya is so strong that the Lord says that it is very difficult to surmount her influence. But one can do so very easily if he surrenders unto me. Eva ye prapadite. Anyone who surrenders unto him can overcome the influence of the stringent laws of material nature. It is clearly said here that a living entity is put under the influence of Maya by his will, and if anyone wants to get out of this entanglement, this can be made possible simply by his mercy. The activities of the conditioned souls under the influence of material nature are explained here. Every conditioned soul is engaged in different types of work under the influence of material nature. We can see in the material world that the conditioned soul acts so powerfully that he is playing wonderfully in creating the so-called advancements of material civilization for sense gratification. But actually his position is to know that he is an eternal servant of the Supreme Lord. When he is actually in perfect knowledge, he knows that the Lord is the supreme worshipful object and that the living entity is his eternal servant. Without this knowledge, he engages in material activities. That is called ignorance.
Thank you very much for reading, Ross Prabhu. Maharaj, would you care to comment?
No, not at the moment.
Praveen Krishna Prabhu offers us a verse and translation. Tatapi te deva padam bujadvaya prasada leshanugrihita evahi janati tatvang bhagavan mahimno nachanya eko pichirang vichinvan. My Lord, if one is favored by even a slight trace of the mercy of your lotus feet, he can understand the greatness of your personality. But those who speculate to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead are unable to know you, even though they continue to study the Vedas for many years. Thank you, Praveen Krishna Prabhu. Thank you again for reading, Ras Prabhu. Panchatattva Prabhu has a comment. I am thinking, as so many all over the world must be, of the glorious life and devotional activities of His Holiness Gopal Krishna Das Goswami, by whose complete surrender to Srila Prabhupada has spread Krishna consciousness and brought many souls into the cult of Krishna Bhakti. Thank you, Panchatattva Prabhu.
Jai.
And would you like to lead us in Kirtan also? Ananta Shesha Prabhu says 100% Prabhupada soldier.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa, Privrajacharya Astotra Satta Sri Srimad His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa, Privrajacharya Astotra Satta Sri Srimad His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrindi Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakund Radhakund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Tulasi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. His Holiness Gopal Krishna Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Gaur Premanande.
Hari Hari Bol. Thank you so much, Panchatattva Prabhu. And thank you, Maharaj, for being with us and giving us your association. Thank you, everyone, for joining and sharing and reading and commenting. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami Maharaj ki jai. His Holiness Gopal Krishna Das Goswami Maharaj ki jai.
Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai.
Jai.
Gaur Premanande.
Hari Bol. Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Thank you, Panchatattva.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Shana.
Hare Krishna.
Gurudas Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Jai.